Thank you so much for joining me this evening. This is Tom Froming. The channel is TF Twins. As you see here, I've got a chat up, so anybody who's on YouTube live chatting, your message will pop up here. We're going to discuss the trade deadline. Yes, there is a Twins game happening as I speak. I usually try to avoid live streaming during a Twins game, but all things considered, I think this is maybe the most distracted we'll ever be throughout the season during a Twins game, with so much happening around the trade deadline. Unfortunately, not much happening at all with the Twins. Hey, Henry, thanks for coming by. But we'll discuss, some of the happenings of the day. We'll discuss some of the guys that are still out there. We'll discuss kind of my outlook on the Twins for this deadline. But again, the Twins are playing. They're down 2-0. We're not here to discuss that live. Just kind of want to make that clear. So if you're kind of into the game right now, totally understand. Come on back. If you're watching this on replay, we're going to stick to this pretty tight. We're going to keep it tight. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. Keep the discussion flowing, so stick around. So, it was an active day, certainly compared to everything else that we've seen up to this point. Drew, sir, dude, I'm starting to freak out. I'm glad you reminded me. This is why I put on my Twins Hawaiian shirt. I'm trying to keep it chill. I'm trying, keyword trying to keep it chill. Right. Miles is saying the Twins won't do anything. They'll do something. I can pretty much promise you the Twins are going to do something. Might not be anything that we want them to do. But a lot of other people kind of disappointment. Don't hold your breath. It's no fun to watch these moves going down and have them not be your team. Of course, Frankie Montas, the guy that we've been asking for months now, all off season, post lockout at least. And then he finally gets traded today to the Yankees. We'll talk about that a little bit, kind of the guts of that trade, but just obviously the initial reaction is just disappointment. You understand, Frankie Montas is one of the better pitchers in baseball. Of course, most competing teams would love to add him. So the competition to get him was going to be difficult. And I'll be honest, it kind of depends on what you look at or even you can try to think in Oakland's stance of what they might value. That all depends as well. Obviously, it comes down to that, what Oakland wants in a trade. But at the end of the day, the Twins, they didn't get the deal done. The Yankees got them. If you want to leave it at that, we can leave it at that. But I don't think the Twins really could have done much to try to match the offer that the Yankees gave Oakland. I think that was a good offer. I think that was a strong package that the Yankees sent them. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer that the Twins aren't in a position in terms of the front office and the minor league system, the prospects, to kind of be competitive for one of the top guys in the market right now, especially in such a competitive window, competitive year in which there's the extra wild card too. There are fewer sellers out there, so it's going to be difficult for them to get. And like Kevin has thrown this out there, the Twins are too far from the good teams. I want to keep coming back to this. And like we as Twins fans should know this better than anybody. I mean, I think the 1987 Twins were one of the biggest underdog World Series champions of all time. But just last season, we watched the Atlanta Braves, who no one gave any hope in the National League, especially with two super teams in the NL West last year, and the Giants and Dodgers. And their rotation was in shambles, the Braves. They had multiple relievers start games in the World Series. That's how banged up their rotation was by the end of that run. And they won the World Series last year. So I'm of the mind, I'm not going to disagree with anybody. I've said this recently, I think on the last live stream, you think the Twins aren't that great. You don't think they're very poised to make noise in October. You're probably right. You think the only reason why they're in first place is because they're in a crap division. You're right. Congratulations. The problem is we don't know anything, actually. We're terrible. It's so hard to predict baseball. These teams are so evenly matched. Lots of weird stuff goes on. And I think if you have a pathway to the postseason, it grossed me out. What Baltimore did today. That's a team over 500. That's a team in the playoff hunt. They probably have a better record today than Atlanta did a year ago, and they traded away Trey Mancini. Ick. I think anytime you're in a good position to take a shot, I'm not saying you sell the farm and go for it when you're in this position where, yes, clearly the Yankees are, a pretty elite team, not just, in terms of being one of the better teams in the American League, like a very special team this season. Clearly Houston is very good as well. And obviously the Twins are far behind those two teams. I don't think that means you should sell. Because why? Why? What are you selling for? This we learned last year. We should know better than that. Last year the Twins went from first to last. So you could trade away this opportunity that you have in front of you, and not really get any. The dream is you add this impact pitcher if you trade away somebody, but that's just not how it works a lot of the time. Speaking of Baltimore, take a look at their package they got in return when they traded Manny Machado. Not a whole lot of impact pieces coming back in that deal when they traded him to the Dodgers. But, again, kind of rolling back here to sort of chilling out. We're going to chill out a little bit. Okay. There's, the weird thing is that nobody else in the AL Central has done anything. The only thing Houston did, I'm pretty sure today, unless I've missed anything since I've gotten on, was add a catcher, which is nice. They needed a catcher. Vasquez from Boston, a guy who's been, a workhorse for them, kind of an Iron Man behind the plate for them, a guy who has gone through, extended postseason runs for them. Nobody else in the AL Central. Actually, the Royals traded for a guy. I think did the White Sox get a reliever? I think they got a lefty. I think they got Jake Diekman today. I think that was them. So nothing too significant. Yep. So they traded Reese McGuire, a catcher they have, for Jake Diekman. There's a lot of teams that haven't done anything. The Padres made a big splash in getting Josh Hader today. That was kind of a surprise move. They sent our old buddy Rogers over to Milwaukee in that one with some prospects. So that was kind of a surprise. And then the Yankees getting, obviously Montas. They also got Lou Trevino in that trade. They also traded for Scott Efros from the Cubs, who we discussed a little bit on this channel not too long ago. But, other than there was some extension signed recently too, with Austin Riley today. That was a big story. And I'm trying to just make sure I didn't miss anything here. So it's not like there have been a ton of moves. Obviously, Luis Castillo going to Seattle earlier. So now that Castillo and Montas are off the board, that's what we're bummed about. Obviously, we're bummed about those two biggest impact guys coming off the board. The two guys that could have, and a lot of people argued with me when I said, I've talked a lot on the channel about starting pitching, and a lot of people have said, well, I don't know why we would even target starting pitching. The bullpen's the problem anyway. I think things have changed a bit since then because there have been some more injuries. I would agree still, though, that like the bullpen is the worst problem that needs fixing for the Twins. But, we're only talking about 2 months left of the season or whatever. What's a bullpen guy going to throw, like 20 innings? I think, now you can pick those innings. So that's the thing about bullpen. You can insert them into high leverage spots. Whereas with a starting pitcher, maybe the lineup scores 7 runs that day and you didn't really need your ace going that day anyway. But the Twins can still do a lot to make this roster better, a lot to make this roster more, give it a better upside to win a series. To win a playoff game. I mean, I want that gone. I don't know about y'all. I get it. That the Yankees and the Astros in particular just look like these monster teams. I get it. Man, if they could just get the goddamn losing streak over. That would be nice, just to not have that hanging over our heads anymore, wouldn't it? Right? So I still think there's plenty of guys out there that can help the team become more of a, not just that this team won a crappy division. You know what I mean? Hey, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. We'll talk about it. I have 10 targets that are still out there. I want to talk about 2 that I think are not going to happen first, because probably these are 2 names that people will throw out if I don't mention them anyway. So Pablo Lopez, I think the same thing that happened with Montas and Castillo. Other teams just have deeper farm systems. They have more guys that they are able to trade from. They have more depth. The Twins don't want to trade like Jose Miranda. And so many of their prospects at the top of the list, unfortunately, are injured right now, like Royce Lewis. Or they can't trade, like Brooks Lee. You just drafted him. You can't trade him. I don't think that if Miami even makes Pablo Lopez available, I think, from what we've seen in these first 2 trades, the prices that are being met, and Lopez has more control, keep in mind, than Castillo or Montas does. So I don't think I would fall out of my chair on that one. And then David Bednar, talking about, again, the bullpen side, a guy who's pitched extremely well for the Pirates for 2 years now, and has a ton of control. I just don't think that the Twins would push that far because his value is so high, having so many years of team control. I don't think that they're going to push that hard to get him. But, who knows? Who knows? It would shock me. So those are 2 guys I'm not going to talk about. Now, that still leaves some pretty good pieces. Carlos Rodon, for example, he hit an innings point to where he now can opt out of his contract at the end of the year, which he probably will do. I think he should do. So he's basically a rental. So that means, the Giants, who are kind of fading out of it in the National League, they're probably willing to trade him. And, given that contract status, it's not like a Pablo Lopez situation where he has so many years of team control. He's not only a good pitcher, he's super duper duper valuable. Now, I don't want to, throw any shade at Carlos Rodon because he's amazing. But that would be sort of, if you're hanging on to hope for one more tippy-toppy of the rotation guy. Tyler Mahle is the other one who's kind of an obvious one who's been talked about a ton. But I wanted to throw Rodon out there in addition to Mahle. After that, it gets to be a bit of a gap, certainly. I think there's a pretty big step down. But I will say, in regard to Josh Hader, we didn't really expect. We heard that maybe Milwaukee was listening on Josh Hader, but I didn't expect him to get traded personally. So maybe there's some other starting pitchers out there that we haven't heard put out on the rumor mill. But after Rodon and Mahle, to be honest with you, it's guys that would be big upgrades to the Twins rotation, no doubt about it. Because again, right now we're sitting here looking at this rotation, and in a potential 3-game playoff series, which is what the wild card round is now, the first round, Dylan Bundy would probably start a game for the Twins. That is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So the next 2 guys, are not the needle pushers that Rodon and Mahle would be, but Nathan Eovaldi for Boston and Noah Syndergaard for the Angels would clearly be big additions for this rotation. I think Syndergaard in particular is much more of a brand name than matches his current value right now. But again, it's like a beggars can't be choosers thing. Yeah. So there's other guys. There's other guys on the rotation market, again, that would more represent, hey, they're upgrading this rotation, not going to really light the world on fire. Out in the bullpen, there hasn't been a ton of guys moved there. Unfortunately, the way things are usually, bad teams don't often have good bullpens. That's not usually, usually if you're a bad team, it's part of it is because you have a bad bullpen. And if you're a bad team, you've been bad for a while, you probably didn't invest a lot in your bullpen. But there are still some names in the bullpen market that I really like. David Robertson is kind of the name that stands out with the Cubs. Closer for them. He has lots of closing experience, pitching very well, throws a cutter. So that's sort of the main name that's been talking about. But the guy I really like is Joe Jimenez for the Tigers, who the Twins are facing right now. I should probably at least glance at the score every once in a while. Again, if you're just cutting in through commercials or whatever. I just am not that interested in this game. Obviously, I want the Twins to win. The Twins need to be beating the Tigers, for God's sake. And they're losing 2-0 still. So maybe Joe Jimenez is a guy we'll see tonight. And his career's kind of been a lot up and down. So you may remember him. He's played against the Twins quite a bit, plus spending his whole year with the Tigers. He is really, and he's been a closer for them at certain points, kind of lost that job and come back. And he's having a tremendous year. He's a guy I'm very interested in. Anthony Bass with Miami is a guy who's been a really good setup guy for them. He would be a big addition for the Twins. Jorge Lopez with the Orioles, who I know, we walked him off back-to-back nights or whatever that was. But he's still a very hard-throwing guy that's really taken to the bullpen for Baltimore. Kyle Finnegan was a name for the Nationals that popped out as well. But like the relief market is robust. It's not. There's probably not going to be any more Josh Haders that are going to be moving. But there's a lot of guys that can help this Twins bullpen out there still. And then, position player wise, the Twins could use some help there, especially with some injuries. Behind the plate, they have some concerns with Jeffers being out for a while. Now in the outfield, there's some concern with Max just went on the IL. Kirilloff, there's some questions about his wrist again. But Larnach, based off his original timetable from when he went to the injured list, should be coming back any week now. So it's not a long-term thing that he's expected to be out for. So I'm not sure, how much, to think that the Twins should invest in outfield in particular, because they have a bunch of these guys long-term. But I wouldn't put something sneaky past Falvey and Levine doing something like going and getting Sean Murphy from Oakland, their catcher. Because, the Twins, Ryan Jeffers is a big league catcher that they have long-term. I'm not so sure he's the big league catcher. I think if you had your choice, you would like to have him be the backup. And I know that was the way they had things set up rolling into this year. And they created the opportunity for him to be the starter. And the book isn't written on him yet. He has a lot of time to get better and show himself better than he has. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the Twins did something like traded for Sean Murphy with Oakland and just said, hey, well, maybe he's not the most obvious guy to upgrade our team right now. But the starting pitching market, we couldn't make the addition that we wanted there, the big one. So we're going to kind of aim a little bit lower and then shift focus onto this. We'll address this spot. And then Murphy has multiple years of team control. So I don't know. Just an interesting thing to throw out there for you to consider. But yeah, I think, as kind of that discussion went, and I think, anybody that's watched this team knows that that's no surprise that pitching is very clearly the first, second, and third need above any bats. Yes, some of these injuries have created some need. You could just call up Matt Wallner, though, too. Let's say worst case scenario, and you're going to be without Kepler, Kirilloff, Larnach for a while longer. It's not as if there's nobody in the minors that you couldn't turn to in that situation. All right, so we got lots of comments. And I didn't throw this out there. I usually try to mention this. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. I will not be offended at all if there's side conversations going on. Actually, I enjoy that. That's kind of things I like. This is not all about me. This is all us Twins fans coming in, hanging out together and either celebrating something great or lamenting or just trying to take a breather and chill out, guys. The deadline is tomorrow. Yeah, we're all disappointed. Luis Castillo would have been awesome. Frankie Montas would have been awesome. Let's see what I'm not going to make you any promises, but let's see what's to come. The last thing I want to do to tie off this conversation is to make sure, and I see we have a question about the front office that I'll get to, but to make sure to somebody tried to, I don't know. I feel like if you watch the channel or follow me on Twitter, I hope I don't come off too much as a Twins apologist. I am a let's freak out and throw a fit about something once we know what's happened. Like if it comes down to the deadline tomorrow and the Twins did nothing or they sold, yeah, I'm gonna be throwing a fit. Okay, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be pissed off. Again, I don't think they should sell the farm to like try to go all in for this year or anything. But if they do nothing or if they try to sell, I'll be on here freaking out tomorrow. I promise. But I'm not going to get pre-pissed off. That's not. That is one thing I'm not going to do. But somebody tried to float out there that I was trying to explain that I didn't think that the Twins could beat the Yankees trade offer, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And somebody tried to say I was being a Twins apologist. And no, I want to make that clear. The reason why the Twins couldn't probably beat the Yankees offer is because their farm system isn't good enough. And that is the Twins' problem. It's nobody else's problem that the farm system isn't good enough to have excess pieces to acquire these guys. Now, there have been a lot of graduations from the Twins system recently, but that's when you're a team that isn't super active in free agency, you're always gonna be graduating guys on a pretty good cycle. So take that for what it's worth. So if I seem extra chill too in my Hawaiian shirt, that's why, because I'm not going to get pre-pissed. I'll get plenty pissed tomorrow if it comes down to it. I promise. Okay. Yes, the Twins freak out video will come. All right. Oh, is Joe Jimenez pitching now? He is pitching now. So, of course, the Twins are going to score like 4 runs off of him. Oh, boy. That's awesome. All right. Like, we got some good comments. I can already see kind of scrolling through some. Ooh, Jacob Cave. You know, I've tried the marketing campaign on Jacob Cave to try to get him back to prospect status, but it doesn't appear that that's worked. I did my best. I sent tapes to all 29 front offices. And, you know, what can you do? We got some good jokes cracking too. That's good. That's good. Either you're relieving frustration or having a laugh. Either way, that's good. Would love Carl Edwards Jr. in a Josh Bell package. I just think, you know, I'm not saying that that wouldn't be a good deal. Edwards Jr. is a reliever and Josh Bell is a first baseman DH. I think there's probably another team that is going to be hotter after a bat. That's just going to be more in pursuit and give the Nationals more than the Twins would potentially offer up there. But, you know, every time I kind of say that about like a hitter, it kind of feels like, gosh, it's like the exact thing that Falvey Levine would probably do. They you know, every time we're like, oh, okay, cool. The lineup looks good. The lineup looks set. Well, you need maybe one more pitcher, but and then they Carlos Correa. So I don't know. This would be bad. This would be real bad. I'd rather Tom pitch than Bundy. Oh man, you don't. I guess maybe it would be at least more comic relief than utter sadness, but I don't know. What are the Rockies doing? That's the other thing, too, that sucks about all this is you can't make teams sell or make their guys available. The Rockies extended Bard, which it was the most Rockies thing ever. Yeah, he could have been a great target for the Twins. That really hurts the reliever market, unfortunately. Even if the Twins wouldn't have been in on him, you know, somebody else would have. So it's a bummer. Thor, we already got him. Yeah, somebody asked about packaging Jock and Rodon. You know, Jock Peterson's also only on a 1-year deal. I don't think that had options. I could be wrong. But I think that was a straight-up 1-year deal that he signed. And he's having a great year with San Francisco. You know, I think both those guys are going to be quite attractive. And who knows, too, you know, the Twins... They seem to like to hold off because the thing I've mentioned a lot about this front office is they focus so much on value. And I think maybe they feel like they can get better value if they're holding off at the end. So maybe, I don't know, maybe one of these guys that goes last. And that, that kind of works into Rodon, his free agency, I think. He was one of the last guys that was available. And I think a lot of teams just had spent, their payroll to where they wanted to go. And they weren't really comfortable. They kind of got to that number. And they, either weren't comfortable or maybe the teams couldn't get ownership approval to go beyond that number. And that hurt Carlos Rodon in the end. Obviously he had a lot of questions about his arm. Still kind of does, long term. But I'm curious if maybe the Twins think that maybe somebody might slip through and see how things work out there. So it's hard. It's always hard to say what's going to happen. So I want to talk about this first. Let's do this first. What do y'all think about the front office? I made my thoughts known about a year ago, that, I had lost faith that they were the guys to get it done. But I thought, let's give them this year. It wouldn't make it. I didn't think that they were going to probably get it done, but let's see what happens this year. I'm willing to give them this year to see what happens. Clearly going from last place to first place is a great outcome. If you're only going to look from, 5,000 feet up or whatever the expression is, that's a great turnaround that they've had this year. So it's a bit hard to be upset, but if the closer you look at things, we have a very bad division. Again, don't want to stray from that. This is a very flawed team. They haven't really done what they were really brought in to do, and that's build a pitching pipeline. Joe Ryan's great. They got him in a trade. I don't know if you want to count that as developing a guy or not. I guess I'll give him some credit for that. They identified him at least. You got to give him some credit there. Certainly, Kenta Maeda getting hurt really sucks. Chris Paddock getting hurt really sucks. Some unfortunate things have happened. But the thing that I was more sort of curious about was like, let's give these pitching prospects that they have at the top of the prospect list entering this year. So your Jordan Balazovics, your Yohan Durans, which he's been great. Even as a reliever, it's still, you get a reliever that good. It's great. And that's another guy they acquired. But again, Balazovic hasn't been very good. Simeon Woods Richardson is, I think, probably, to me, the best pitching prospect in the system. But I don't see him as like a number 1 or 2 starter. Matt Cantorino cannot stay healthy. Cole Sands, I think he's got more to show than he's shown with the Twins. And he's been pitching better for the Saints lately. But he's also more of a back-end guy, I think. You throw that in with the fact that like Bailey Ober, we're kind of being reminded that he's never really been able to stay healthy again. Josh Winder, since this big velocity uptick, he hasn't really been able to stay healthy for a long stretch. And that, some of that's true of in 2022, pitchers are hurt all the time. It's just that's a pretty common thing, but that just means you need a crap load of pitching. You have to have it. And if you don't, it's going to be difficult to have any kind of continued success. So, a lot hinges on this deadline for me, for them. Again, it's not like I thought they had a really creative and fun and interesting offseason, and give them credit for that. But how much, more functional is the team? That's pretty debatable. And, I was thinking about this today, about, all the kind of, we mentioned Duran, and Ryan. They have added a bunch of guys. They've brought in talent, no doubt about it. They've acquired some guys. Sonny Gray was brought in basically because of Chase Petty, who they drafted. So, connecting all the dots, but like Jose Miranda, right? He's sort of the breakout guy right now. He was in the last Terry Ryan draft. So they've had him under their, guidance more than the Terry Ryan era did. So I don't want to make it sound like they don't get any credit for Jose Miranda. but it's so hard to develop. It's really hard to judge, I feel like, a front office when you're an organization like the Twins that's so dependent on drafting and developing. Because, again, a guy who is, emerging as, maybe the Twins rookie of the year, Joe Ryan still qualifies. But I mean, if Miranda keeps this up, he's definitely going to be that guy. Was drafted by the previous regime still. And these guys have been around for years. So it's just kind of crazy trying to look back at that stuff. Yeah, and let's so that's the thing I wanted to pull up. And I think it's really interesting to look at how you can kind of stack things up at Fangraphs in particular. And it's nice too because they have their list updated. So let me see here. I'm going to share a screen. So one sec while I stumble through that. There we go. So as you can see here, we're at Fangraphs. What I have up here is now the Twins and now Oakland. They already have these guys updated from today. Oakland acquired Waldichuk and Medina from the Yankees in the Montas trade, and a couple other guys too, but those were the two headliners. And as you can see, I have the Twins and Oakland's lists, so you can actually pull up teams together. So basically, this is how a list of just Twins and A's prospects would look. And as you see, Waldichuk and Medina are above everybody except for Brooks Lee. So even if the Twins, offered Royce Lewis and Josh Winder or Austin Martin or whoever, that wouldn't be enough to beat Medina and Soderstrom according to these rankings. And then you kind of combine in the fact that those two guys are both pitchers, and perhaps Oakland was more interested in getting pitching. Also, like, Fangraphs rankings might be completely way off from what Oakland's rankings are. Who knows? But I just wanted to put that out there because initially, some people kind of made it sound like that offer that was accepted by Oakland, the Twins could have easily beat. And I think, like, maybe if we're talking about including Yohan Duran or Jose Miranda, then okay. I mean, like, there's a way that can be beat, certainly. But I also want to point out, like, some publications don't see those guys highly. I don't think Baseball America is quite as high on those two guys that went to Oakland as Fangraphs is, but they were the 5th and 9th prospects in the Yankees system in their midseason update at Baseball America. But obviously Fangraphs is higher on those two guys for whatever reason than Baseball America is. So, there's a lot of division, and it's, once you get into the top 100 prospects, it's pretty tight between, the 150th guy and probably the 40th guy aren't really all that different in terms of projected future value. So yeah, I think Oakland did really well here. I was looking, Baseball America's mid-season top 100 list came out. I just got this in the mail today. And the two guys who were the main pieces in the Luis Castillo trade that went to the Reds, Noel Marte and Edwin Arroyo, are numbers 43 and 44 on their top 100 in the mid-season prospect list. The Twins don't have, I think the top Twin was Royce Lewis at 54. So both of those, again, make it clear, I don't think the Twins realistically could have beat either of those packages. But again, not making excuses for the Twins is because they don't have enough talent. So at the end of the day, it's not making excuses. It's not being a Twins apologist. It's just being realistic in, hey, why didn't the Twins get these guys? They couldn't. They couldn't build a better package than those two deals. So it's frustrating. Absolutely. We want those guys on the Twins, but, it is what it is. Yeah, and I should mention too that there were some other people too, and whatever. Everybody's frustrated. I think at how things are going. The Twins aren't playing well. They haven't made trades yet. So I think that the Hader trade frustrated a lot of people as well, because Rogers, who the Twins had traded so recently, went to Milwaukee in that trade. But there were some nice pieces that went prospect-wise to Milwaukee in that one as well. Baseball America has Robert Gasser and Estuary Ruiz as San Diego's 8th and 9th best prospects at midseason. So they're 2 of their top 10 guys, and Taylor Rogers and Dinelson Lamet, who's got a great arm, but has had some problems living up to it. Yeah, but that's all about, I think that's just all comes down to being frustrated, which can identify. Same, bro. Same. Also frustrated. And, it's worth pointing out, too, Josh hasn't been pitching all that well. And Rogers hasn't either, to be fair. Mm-hmm. And kind of catching back up. And thanks again for that super chat. Hopefully I answered that question. It was shortly after you sent that, but I went over kind of 10 guys that were kind of jumped out to me as interesting or that they could trade for. I think, Rodon and Male, it's not going to be easy. They're going to have a lot of teams after them. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to get one of those guys, but we shall see. Zachary, disgusted that Taylor Rogers is a Brewer. I've always thought the whole border battle thing is kind of nice in Major League Baseball with us in Wisconsin, because it's not so heated. Totally different league, totally different division. It's not like Vikings Packers where it's like blood. You can't just hatred. Whereas there are neighbors still. We want to beat them, but it's like, again, we're not division rivals. I've never had really like ill will for the Brewers, but I guess maybe I haven't met the right Brewers fans. It's funny how that works sometimes. A certain fan of a certain team can just sort of turn you off to their whole fan base. Shohei Ohtani is not going to get traded. And again, kind of sticking with the theme of tonight's discussion, the Twins couldn't pull it off anyway. You might say, well, hey, why have we been talking about Frankie Montas and Luis Castillo if the Twins never had a shot at him anyway? Well, a few things. We didn't know what the price was going to be at the end of the day. Now we do, and it was a lot. And it turned out, both of those teams didn't have any kind of chance entering this season. And I'll give them both credit. And I think Castillo had an injury during spring training, so they couldn't really trade him at one point. But it looks like both of those situations, those teams benefited by keeping those guys and trading them in season when there was going to be some desperate teams willing to potentially give up more prospect capital. So, we didn't know what the price was going to be. And I think, like, logically speaking, like if you use like the trade simulators and stuff, you could build packages that looked like they made sense. But what you can't ever know is what the other teams are going to offer. What can you do? Sucks. Aaron Chez is an ace confirmed. He pitched well tonight. Let me pull up his line here again. Not keeping a real close eye on tonight's game. This is probably like the least interested I've been in a Twins game this year, mainly because of everything else that's going on. But I will say Aaron Sanchez starting the game was part of why I was like, I don't really want to watch that. But he pitched well. What did he do? It's the bats that haven't done anything. 5 innings, 2 runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Very nice. Unfortunately, that probably buys him some more time in the rotation. which if he's going to be facing somebody other than Detroit, it might not go as well. But hey, back to the beggars can't be choosers point. Yeah, and it's funny to have that discussion of, well, the Twins probably don't need bats; they need arms. And a night they're getting shut out by Detroit. Although it is Tarek Skubal, who's a pretty good pitcher, and for a bad team, they have actually a pretty solid bullpen. Come on, Byron Buxton off the team. Why? Why? Why is everybody so antsy about getting rid of good players? I don't understand that. I can't get on board with that one. Sorry, buddy. All right. Catching up here. Drew, throwing out mock trade idea. Jock Peterson and Carlos Rodon for Austin Martin, Matt Wallner, and Simeon Woods Richardson. Again, a lot of this is going to depend on kind of how the Giants view those players internally. I think all three of those guys, you see quite a bit of variance in how they're viewed. I I was the lowest person on Austin Martin entering this year, and somehow I'm ending up now as like one of the higher people on him. I think the hate's gone too far, but you see his stock has dropped. I mean, there's no denying his stock has dropped, but I guess I kind of had pre-dropped him entering this year. I think he's still a very high floor prospect. You know, again, maybe he's still up there for the Giants. Matt Wallner, another guy where I think you can, if you focus on the things he does well, the power is special. It is plus power for Matt Wallner, and he's getting on base a ton, which kind of negates the scary part of his game, which he has a lot of swing and miss. He strikes out a ton. As long as you're getting on base, you know, especially in hitting for power, that doesn't matter as much. But, you know, it's obviously always a concern when a guy is striking out a ton in the minor leagues. It's like, well, what's going to happen when he faces the best pitchers in the world? You can't really expect that to go down. So bright side on both those guys is looking really good, but there's some kind of sketchy downside where I could see a lot of teams not showing a lot of interest in them. And the same thing with Simeon Woods Richardson. Still, even though he's in his second year in Double A, he's one of the youngest pitchers in Double A. I think he's only faced he's faced less than 10 batters that are younger than he is in Double A. So he's still way younger than the competition, developing along. He's only a little over 100 days older than Connor Prelip, the guy the Twins just drafted in the second round, Simeon Woods Richardson. So that's something to keep in mind. You know, Connor Prelip's barely pitched in college. He's going to be coming in pitching in the lower levels of the minor leagues, whereas Woods Richardson at this point, same age basically, is in his second year Double A. But his stuff isn't really like knockout stuff for Woods Richardson. I think he's a better pitcher than he is just like a dominating force of a prospect. So, you know, and if you're trading, you know, top pieces, you might take the arm and hope that you can develop it into a starter, then take the high floor guy in Woods Richardson. You might go high risk rather than the high floor. I think that especially the thing you got to remember is both those guys are rentals, Jock and Rodon. I'm pretty sure because Rodon has the opt-out now that he's reached those innings. And I don't think Peterson. We'll look it up right now just to make sure. Yep, Peterson is a free agent at the end of the year. So, again, I think the way that both those guys are playing, they're going to be really attractive pieces. But since they don't have, they're just rentals, the trade package that it's going to take to get them might not seem as crazy as some of these other ones that have gone out for your Castillos and Montoses that have another year of team control. So we'll see. I think that, you know, it all depends on what kind of players the Giants want, but I think that definitely can at least open the conversation for you there. I would anticipate probably another team makes a better offer, but that's at least a good one to discuss. All right. Is this like a major league, the movie situation? Can the Twins do a walk-on trial? I mean, just like take all the indie ball guys, and just whoever's the best of them, they make the team in mid-season. I mean, that's like almost what they did with Randy Dobnak back a few years. So I'm not going to say no, right? All right, but just to reiterate, again, trying to keep it cool, trying to chill. It's not easy. I get why everybody's frustrated right now. Everybody's antsy, kind of freaking out. But there is until, I think it's 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, and quite a few guys out there. And especially, I mean, that's obviously a backhanded compliment, but especially guys who could help the Twins out there. So I see that we have, it sounds like Jose Quintana is going to be going to the Cardinals. You'll notice he wasn't among the guys that I kind of threw out there as being quite attractive. Definitely was a guy on the radar for me and who would have been, again, an improvement for the Twins, an upgrade for the Twins, but not somebody. He's been pitching really great for the Pirates. You know, give him credit. I don't trust it that much. You know, not that I necessarily trust like Noah Syndergaard a ton right now, the way he is, but. You know, Quintana was kind of right there, close to that next grouping. Would have been a guy who could have helped the Twins, but and I don't think the thing is too, and I mentioned this with the Manny Machado example. I don't think that you're likely to get like a franchise altering player for Carlos Correa. Maybe, who knows? Maybe. You never know. I just don't think that it would be worth trading him right now to totally give up on 2022 when you have a chance to get in and make some noise potentially if you help fix this team. Clearly, they're not going to be again. Don't want to lose sight of that. Clearly, they're going to be an underdog. No matter if they win the division or not in the American League. But I just don't, I don't think it's likely that you're going to be able to get a massive impact piece when people are assuming that Correa is going to opt out and become a free agent at the end of this year. I would be if they gave up on this team with this opportunity. It's a very flawed team, but the AL Central is so down right now. You have a clear runway to get into and again, remember the first round of the playoffs, it's all 3 games are at home. If you're the division champion, you're going to face the last wild card team that gets in. All 3 games are at home. Just something to keep in mind. Yeah, and this is a good point John points out. And I don't know that I would. Here's the thing: we have 2 different things going on here, and that was what I tried to kind of explain in that article I wrote last year. Was actually I don't think that the Twins front office is that bad. I don't think that they're so bad that they should get fired. I don't think they're good enough to run this team to a successful point of where what they're supposed to be doing, a sustainable contending team that can be realistically a team that every once in a while will pop up to contend with the best teams in the division or in the league. Their tenure here has been pretty successful if you look at it. And if you look across baseball, there are some horrible teams. There are some horrible organizations that clearly the Twins are miles ahead of. So I don't think it's fair to completely say that they're crap, they're horrible, they're worthless. But I do think the second part I agree with very strongly. The only way the Twins can win a World Series is with top-notch farm system / development. That goes into, drafting, self-scouting, trading, making all the right moves along the edges of your 40-man roster, properly investing your however much free agent budget you have. So many things have to go right for the Twins to really be a upper echelon team. And I don't think that this front office, I don't trust them to do it, because basically I don't have faith in them to do that. That was kind of my point at that point last year. They haven't really won me over since then. At the point last year, I felt like I wasn't going to call for them to be fired because I thought that was potentially more damaging than anything to have to restart all over again. So I wanted to see what happened this year. And again, a lot rides on this. A lot rides on how they pull this deadline to me. And I had one more place I was going there. Oh, yes. And the other thing, too, is they've been around for 6 years? I think, Falvey and Levine now. What was cutting edge 6 years ago is old now. That's, things move so quickly. And I'm sure they've helped the Twins organization keep up to some degree. There was a massive gap that they had to help the Twins from previous regimes catch up in terms of technology and all those things. So they've helped get the Twins back up to speed. But I think at this point, it's possible, kind of like with a lot of coaches, that you've squeezed everything you can get out of them. And at this point, it might make sense to go grab somebody else who is on the cutting edge, who can bring something new into your organization that you're not currently doing, and push you forward more. So I think that's another consideration to think, even if you are someone who thinks that Favre and Levine have done a good job. And if you point at, win-loss records, whatever, for the most part, if you're judging by that, they have. So fair to say. But I would say even then, look at managers. Look how managers are so disposable. They're gone left and right. For the most, not common in the Twins. There's one nice thing you want to say about the Pohlads is they've been incredibly loyal to a lot of front office members, coaches. It's not an organization that just fires people on a whim. But I think that, that has to be part of the consideration too, is, not just looking at the front office and what you think of them. What else is out there? It could be worse. You might bring somebody else new in that might be worse, but I think there's a chance you might be able to try to find the next hot up and coming executives to give them a shot. How similar? It kind of, you have to think about it the other way. What the Reds are demanding might be, basically it's like the housing market right now, right? It's from what I understand. I haven't bought a house in 12 years now. So, but all the houses now are going over value, over asking price. And that's been the case for quite a few years now on average. I think what's happening is that a lot of these top guys in the market are going for more than a team would have accepted a trade for. So you have to actually think about it the other way around and think, what is the price that other teams are going to be willing to pay for Tyler Mahle? And that's just so hard to say. But would it be kind of similar to Castillo? I think it'll be lower, but I don't think by that much. I don't think by that much. So it's going to take, uncomfortable prospects is what I would put it. Uncomfortable prospects to get Tyler Mahle to come to the Twins. And for a guy that, I know a lot of people that get him will be like, what? This guy's not even that good. He's got a 4.40 ERA, but he's pitched a lot better than that. A lot of under the hood numbers. I mean, he's striking out almost 10 guys per nine, which is the third year in a row he would do that, double-digit K per nine if he can get that up. It's at 9.8 right now. Pitches at Great American Ballpark, which is a really rough place to pitch for a pitcher. I mean, just being on a horrible Reds team can't really help all that much either. So I think he's a very nice piece. I think it'll be somewhat similar to Castillo, but a little bit less. And I think the Twins can be in the mix for that. But again, with Royce being hurt, with unless you want to trade a Miranda, with Larnach and Kirilloff being hurt, with so many of the other prospects not having elevated themselves this year, like an Austin Martin coming to mind. It's just very unfortunate that the long-term outlook for a lot of those guys, they might end up being just as good as we thought they were going to be. But if you're thinking about it from, outside perspective, and you're looking at these pieces, it's like, okay, that guy's not having a very good year. This guy's hurt. And then you look at another organization and maybe they have some guys out there that are a lot better. I should mention that I am going to do an updated prospect list after the trade deadline. This is tricky. I will have Simeon Rose Richardson above Connor Prelip on my prospect list. It kind of comes down to ceiling versus floor. Connor Prelip has a much higher ceiling than Simeon Woods Richardson does, but just with all the injuries, him pitching so little, it's hard for me to push him as far up as a lot of other people have. And again, there's only 105 days that separates them age-wise. That's so crazy to me. Simeon Woods Richardson is still so young. So I think even though he has a high floor, I think there is some upside there that maybe gets overlooked because he's so young. Oh, yeah, we got some bots in here. Sorry about that. I'm kind of trying to play catch-up. So then when they kind of swoop in, I'm a little bit behind on it. My bad. But we're going to wrap this up pretty soon here. Let me just make sure we talked real quick about Quintana. And again, we weren't really here to track the Twins game, just kind of here. Oh, wait, it's tied. All right. Nice. All right. Well, then, especially since the Twins game got interesting, I feel like we should dip out of here. Let everybody watch that. But thanks for hanging out again. Kind of a frustrating day. There is still time to make some additions. I'm not making any promises that they're going to knock your socks off, but they got to give this team a chance. Again, it really grossed me out to see Baltimore trading guys away when they're over 500 for the first time in forever, too. Oh, those poor fans. Those poor Oriole fans. And such a beloved fan favorite, too, to be traded away. I don't want to see the Twins. I don't want to see the Twins sell. So I want to see them give this team a chance. They still can do that tomorrow. Deadline's at 5. I'll be plenty pissed if nothing happens, but I'm not going to get pre-pissed like a lot of other people are. We're in chill mode. I'm going to stay in chill mode. But we'll talk tomorrow and see if we stayed in chill mode tomorrow.